What up, potty people, and welcome back to Clipped. As always, I'm Eric, your host, and Clipped brings you the tools, resources, and people to help you become a better content creator. And stoked to be back here with you guys. I didn't think I was going to knock this episode out because I'm actually going to the hospital in a couple days. My wife is supposed to go into labor, welcoming our second baby girl, so pumped about that. Didn't think I would have time, but I wanted to get this one out anyway. This is a fun one. I'm breaking down the 4 things that I'm doing to supercharge my brand growth. I think if you're looking to grow your personal brand, if you hit on some of these, one of these 4 things, it's going to help benefit you. Stick with it long term. And hey, if you implement all 4 of these, I think you'll be well on your way to getting more views on your content, growing your personal brand, getting your face out there, and getting your messaging out there and who you want to be in the world, of what you want to talk about and how and in what places you want to talk about that stuff. Before we get into it, just got to give a shout out to Riverside, my favorite place to record content online. That's riverside.fm. Get 4K video, high quality audio, AI clips, AI show notes, transcripts, everything you need to boost your content creation in a quick and affordable way. Go to riverside.fm and enter promo code CLIPPED for 20% off. All right, so the 4 things I'm doing to supercharge my brand growth, let's give it a go. Okay, so the first thing that I do for my brand is the podcast. And really the podcast is at the center of it all. I distribute the audio, obviously Apple, Spotify, all the platforms. And I talk about things related to my business, which is podcasting and content creation. So I do a lot of solo episodes, talking about podcast tools, strategies, tips, highlighting service providers, highlighting people that are crushing it in the industry and that can offer you some wisdom and some advice. And so the podcast is really at the center of it all. First, I want to talk about the things I'm doing to grow my podcast, aka to grow my brand. And the first one is using a paid growth strategy with a platform called Overcast. So it's overcast.fm and well, first of all, Overcast is maybe the 3rd or 4th most popular listening app. So obviously most people listen on Apple and Spotify, but there's diehard podcasters that listen on an app called Overcast. And the URL is overcast.fm. But what's cool about Overcast is that you can buy advertising for your show. And essentially, you create 1 to 2 lines of copy, and you upload your podcast artwork, and then Overcast is going to display your podcast to people who are listening to shows in a similar niche or like a similar genre. And so this banner ad, I call it, pops up with your cover art and your 1 to 2 sentences of like promotional copy. And then people click on that. And obviously you hope that they click on it, they like it, and they start to follow the show. So as you can see here, these are some ads that I bought, and I actually just bought one last month in May 2024. It got me 36 subscriptions. 1,043 people clicked on it. I got 36 subscribers. Overcast calls them subscribers. I know Apple calls them followers, whatever. And almost 138,000 people saw my ads. So if you have a budget, Overcast is a great way to promote your podcast and grow your brand, grow that show. So I recommend Overcast for all of you that are willing to put a little bit of money if your podcast is a business, not a hobby. And if you're watching this, hopefully you're treating it like a business, to quote my buddy Adam Schabel. Love your podcast like a hobby, grow it like a business. I believe he said something like that. Okay, so the next strategy I'm using to grow my brand and my podcast in 2024 is with a site called Mopod, MOWPOD, like Mo, like give me more, give me Mo, Mopodcasting. So they do a similar thing, except they show your banner ad across various websites. You can see here on what devices people saw the ad, cities, there's all kinds of data here. And with this, I promoted a specific episode. So whereas Overcast is like the podcast as a whole, Mopod is specific episodes. So this is a growth strategy that I think is cool, especially for certain episodes that you think crush it even more, promoting those. Or hey, like ones that maybe didn't perform as well for whatever reason, people didn't see it, or they got lost in the shuffle, maybe boosting some of those up. And these are called Mopod boosts, which I think is cool. So that's kind of how I'm growing the podcast. The podcast is like the main form of content that these other things that I'm about to tell you like spawns out from. Okay. So number 2 ties into this. That's the video strategy. So I obviously film the podcast. This video that you're watching, if you're listening, the show's slightly different. In fact, sometimes I even leave it the same, audio and video. Sometimes I cut the audio more intricately and clean it up a lot more. Whereas with the video, I make edits, but I kind of let it rip. And overall, they're both the same content. But man, my allergies are killing me. But slightly different, kind of tailored to each platform. But in addition to just like having the video podcast, I also create videos on things that interest me in audio world or content creation world. I'll review audio products. I'll talk about how to use your content to make a little bit of money. I'll also highlight different service providers in the content creation world. Like I've got videos on Riverside, Epidemic Sound, different microphones, things like that. So sometimes they're review videos, sometimes they're how-to videos. So podcast video and also just video content in general. That helps with search. That helps with getting your brand out there. And so as far as like a growth strategy with like the videos, the podcast video and the other video content, honestly, I don't really have like something cool to tell you. I kind of throw that stuff up on YouTube and see what sticks. I make sure to title things well. I try to get like a hook or like a catchy title. Obviously, hashtags fill up all the space with hashtags. I think chapters help a lot because people are searching for probably a specific thing that's in your video. And if they can just scroll right to it, that's great. I mean, sure, you'll have a couple diehards that listen to like the whole video, but getting them a way to get the information they want quicker, I think people like that. I personally like it. But yeah, no real like marketing or growth strategy with that. I'm kind of in the early stages of growing my YouTube. And so I'm just trying to put stuff out there. Obviously, like good content that's edited well, that looks good, but no like paid thing like I'm doing with the audio podcast. And then speaking of YouTube or rather video, number 3 is social media. And the first kind of leg of that for growth is taking those videos and uploading them into Riverside. Riverside.m, that's the .fm, that's the URL. It's the sponsor of this podcast. Because within Riverside, you can use their magic clips feature. I upload the edited video, and then Riverside's AI will pull clips for those videos, and I'll pick a couple of them to post on social media. You can choose like vertical, square, whatever like size image or format you want, which is rad because you can use that for different platforms. I personally mainly just upload them to Instagram. So that video component, the video podcast and the other videos kind of ties into the social media and the repurposing. And the main sites I use are Instagram for the videos, also YouTube Shorts for the videos. I don't really mess with TikTok. I'm not against it. It's too much for me right now, so I don't post on TikTok. I mean, I have, but it's not part of like my growth strategy right now. But what is LinkedIn. And occasionally I will put videos on LinkedIn, but part of this social media growth strategy is me posting thoughts about podcasting and content creation, commenting on other people's posts, giving people shout outs, like propping people up. And it's all typically around like content creation, entrepreneurship type of topics. But I like to have fun. Honestly, on LinkedIn, I troll a little bit. I also just, make sure I add value mostly and then have a little fun playing devil's advocate or trolling. I don't know. I think that might help the algorithm and it's just kind of fun. And that's majority written content on LinkedIn. And that's been a huge growth thing for me. I think I'm at like 987 followers. My goal is to get to 1,000, which probably in the next month or so, that'll happen. And followers on LinkedIn are different from connections. Like if you have a page, you can like get followers. Whereas like if you just have like your work profile or whatever, you get connections or you connect with people that know you or that like have good things to say about you and your career. Having the page, you get the followers. I'm trying to grow the followers and I think it's working. For me personally, LinkedIn is where I see the most organic reach for the stuff I'm putting out, get the most people responding to my stuff, the most like relationship building. That all happens on LinkedIn. So I would say as far as social media, LinkedIn is a huge part of my growth for my personal brand. It's where I'm putting a lot of my efforts for marketing and such. Okay. The last one, there's actually 5 of these. In the intro, I said 4, but that doesn't matter. The 5th one is actually the biggest channel that I have, and that's the blog. And so go to podcasthaven.com/blog, and there you can see a ton of articles. I've got stuff, again, it kind of ties into the YouTube stuff. And in fact, sometimes I'll repurpose videos or repurpose the podcast audio, get that transcribed. And whatever I talked about in that episode, turn that into a blog post. I also obviously just shoot from the top of my head, but the blog gets 4,000 to 6,000 visits a month. And so I'm really trying to grow that. And I do make a little bit of money because in some of these articles, I will post affiliate links to Amazon. So this is one of the things I'm doing to really grow my digital footprint, my online footprint. I use a tool called Ahrefs, and I look for keywords that are being searched for a lot, but that don't have a ton of like articles or posts written about them already. And so that's kind of the strategy there. And you can start to grow a blog or written content if you find keywords, Google search queries that people are looking for, but that content creators haven't written a lot of information about. And the blog is huge for me. It's like potentially, I think, more passionate about that than the podcast because I really want to blow this thing up. I want to get to, 30, 40, 50,000 views a month because I love writing and I love writing about the stuff that I'm passionate about. So that's a huge like growth, personal brand, get my words out there, get known as someone who writes about things in the content creation, podcast, and audio industries. So those are the 5 things that I'm doing to grow my personal brand. And when combined together, you're hitting like I'm hitting all these different channels. I've got like the blog for people who like to read, then the podcast, the audio version of the podcast for people who like to listen, then the video podcast on YouTube. People can discover it there when they're on YouTube. And then of course, social media, everyone's got to have social media, got like the videos on Instagram and the written like interaction stuff on LinkedIn. So the whole goal for me is trying to cover all those aspects of content so I don't leave anybody out. Got the readers, the video watchers, the listeners. And I think if you implement a couple of these things, if you haven't already, and try to hit all those demographics, you're going to be well on your way to growing your personal brand. And so that's it. I'm out. I have to go record a podcast for a client. But until next time, keep listening, keep engaging, keep creating. I'm out.